What's up, guys? I'm back this evening. Um, this evening I just kind of wanted to get on and talk a little bit about the gag order released in the Brian Kohberger trial. There's been a lot of talk about, was what was done fair? Basically the judge lifted the gag order, which means that yes, anybody involved with the trial can speak on it now, but clearly none of the attorneys involved or anything like that want to. I understand that. They are wanting to wait until after the sentencing because, we're kind of in that little vague period between him accepting a plea deal and getting sentenced. If he were to get his panties in a bunch for some reason and want to withdraw his plea, I'm assuming that he could. So that is good reason. However, um, the fact that they won't at least get with each of the families and answer, the questions for the families specific to their victim is not fair to me. Um, these families, they will have the opportunity to speak at the sentencing hearing and do their victim impact statements. And, if you don't know what happened to your child or your brother or your sister or your niece, nephew, whatever this, these victims, was to you, um, if you don't know exactly what happened to them, and that's the case here, like these parents, all that they know was that their children were victims of a horrible crime. They know basic information as far as injuries. Um, I think the only family that has gotten a little bit more information, and I'm not 100% sure on this, so more some other families may have gotten more information, but the Gonzalez families, um, they were able to talk with the coroner, but this was a while back, and they were to get a little bit more information on what happened to their daughter. Um, but these families are, this is literally the only time that they will get to address this man that took the lives of their loved ones. And I just don't think that it's fair that they should have to do that, not even knowing the full brutality of the crimes that he committed against their loved ones. Um, to me, it's almost like you're protecting him a little bit. No, we don't want anybody to know, exactly how bad it was. We want everybody to have a chance to get out of town, whatever. That's just not fair. The documents being unsealed, I get that, but I can promise you they will all be FOIA'd and those families will get the information that they want. But the problem is they shouldn't have to wait on all that. There's 250 sealed documents that will have to be FOIA'd individually. That's going to take a while. And the family shouldn't have to wait that long to me. Um, I feel that, and granted, some of the families may not want to know specifics. And if they don't, then that's their right to not know. But I also feel that it should be the right of the families that do want to know. They should, have the right to be able to go and talk with the prosecutor, the judge, the coroner, whoever needs to be present to answer the questions that they have about their loved one. so that when they go into that hearing this week, and as they're preparing their victim impact statements, they can actually say everything that they need and want to say to this man, because this is the only time that they'll get to do it. Um, I just don't feel that that's just not fair at all to me. Now, I mean, and I know there are some people that are going to disagree with me, and that's fine. Everybody has an opinion, and not everybody, everybody's opinion doesn't have to be the same. But for me, if it were my child, I have four of them. If it were one of my children, yes. I mean, I would want to, as hard as it would be, to know exactly what happened to my child, I would definitely want to know that, so that when I got to be face to face with the perpetrator, I would be able to 100% get everything across to him that I needed to, because that's the only time it's going to happen. Um, I mean, it's a crying shame that it's taken this long for this trial to, we're supposed to be in trial, right now. It was a crying shame that it took this long to get here. And then on top of that, to have the jerk face all of a sudden want to plea because he wants to save his life. Didn't care about the lives of the people that he took. Didn't care about their lives at all. Um, he's only caring about his life now. And the fact that, here, this is the thing for me. This is not your run of the mill criminal. This is a man who was in a doctorate program for forensics. I mean, to me, they can't come up with a motive, supposedly. To me, it looks like, yeah, okay, he's number one, he's a psychopath, and he just wanted to prove that, with all of his schooling and his doctorate and la la la, that he could pull off the perfect crime, maybe to show everybody how smart he was. I don't know, but clearly he is not as smart as he thought he was. But now, what he's going to do, he's going to go into prison for the rest of his life. But do you think that he's just going to sit there and, read magazines and eat his, wham whams and honey buns? No, that's not what he's going to do. He's going to take all the information that he learned through his schooling, through his education, and he's going to use it to help all these other criminals who are in prison with him. I mean, what better person to have in your prison with you than someone who has a doctorate in forensics? Especially if you're working on your appeals. Thankfully, he won't have any. But what about all the other people there that are in the appellate process, that are looking for loopholes, that are looking for any reason that they can possibly put before the court to state that, to sway that judge into thinking that they might need a new trial and possibly be released back out into the unsuspecting public to wreak more havoc and take more lives? Hey, I mean, the guys in that, I don't think that that he will have any problems when he gets to prison. People seem to think that this guy is just going to be bruised and battered and beaten, and they're going to have to keep him under, solitary confinement to save his life. Nuh-uh, no, no. Think about it. I mean, how many of those prisoners are in there because they took the life of the girlfriend or their wife or a stranger, um, because their wife or the girlfriend was, talking smack. Those people don't, that doesn't register with these people. They're not going to call out all harm on Brian Kohberger because he took the lives of young women. A lot of them in there did the same thing. Clearly, that doesn't matter to them. They're going to see him, as well as the fact of, hey, their attorneys who are on the outside, who they get to have, confidential um, communications with, their attorneys are seeing all of this. And their attorneys are like, oh, woo, woo, thank goodness. Do you honestly think that their attorneys, their appellate attorneys that are working on their cases are not going to tell them, hey, guess what? This guy's coming in to where you are. And he's got a doctorate in forensics. So while I'm out here dealing with all my other, cases that I have to deal with, why don't you try to have a sit down with him in the yard or something like that? Be nice to him. See if he can give you any pointers on what we might be needing to look at as far as, forensically, some kind of loophole or a mistake or, anything like that. Maybe he can help you jar your memory. Maybe we can get you that appeal that you want so badly. That's what's going to happen. That's exactly what's going to happen. I mean, you have to look at things realistically. The majority, I'm not going to say the majority because I don't know the majority, but a lot of those men that are going to be in that prison are in prison because they took the life of a female. That has that is not going to make a difference to them. What they're going to do is they're going to bring him some ho-hos. They're going to bring him some zuzus and wham-whams and say, hey, man, I'll give you some soups, Here, I'll give you a few soups if you'll sit down and, talk with me about my case, man. I need someone like you. Me and my attorney, we're looking for areas, where we can poke holes in their case. And man, you got a doctorate in forensics. Okay, yeah. I think that's how it's going to go down. So, not all of them, but I can guarantee you there will be some. So, yeah, I totally feel that these parents should have the opportunity to say everything that they need and want to say to this man when they have the chance to say it. Because after that, he's going to get shipped off, and then he's going to start the next phase of his career, giving out forensic advice to the prisoners who are working on their appeals. So I just don't think that was right at all. Like I said, some of the families, they may not have wanted to know everything, and that's their choice, but there are some that do want to know. And to me, they have the right to know. Call these people in, have a sit down, and give them the information that they ask for. I clearly do not believe that these parents are wanting to look at horrifying pictures. That's not what they're wanting. But they are wanting the information. They're wanting to be told, they're wanting to know what their loved ones' last minutes on this earth were like, so that they can prepare a speech to the man who took their life, that honors them in the way that they need to be honored. And it's hard to do that when you didn't know exactly what they went through. I mean, you might know a little bit here and there, on top of the fact that these were kids. These are their parents. They deserve to know. And they should not have to wait on over 250 sealed documents to be FOIA'd one by one to get the information that they're looking for. That is just ridiculous. Ridiculous. You know, we've got Stephen Stearns. All of a sudden, do you honestly think about this? We have Stephen Stearns. We're supposed to be starting his trial this week. And all of a sudden, he's wanting to enter a plea, possibly. We don't know the specifics of anything yet, but it's a plea for something. I mean, don't you think that might have been uh, those little wheels might have been set into motion by what just happened with this? Oh, well, he entered a plea, and he didn't have to, say anything. He didn't have to admit to anything. He just had to say he was guilty. They didn't make him do anything. Okay, yeah, I'll do that. Because his biggest fear was people finding out exactly what he did and when he did it and for how long he'd been doing it. Yeah, we've seen text messages. We've seen, pictures, not pictures, but pictures, the evidence is there for him. He didn't want that to come out. That's why he's been trying to fight to keep from going to court as long as he has. Because he didn't want to have to be sitting there and all that stuff come out. Oh, but look what just happened. So I mean, yeah. He said, "Oh, so he was able to do a plea and didn't have to admit to anything, didn't have to tell any of the actions that he took in the taking of that life, of any of those lives. He didn't have to do any of that. All he had to do was say yes and guilty. I'll take that. Yes. Let's see if we can get me one of those plea deals. That's why he's getting it. Stop giving these crazy. Oh gosh. Okay. Whew. Let me calm down for a minute. We need to stop allowing these heinous, psychopathic people to get plea deals. Okay? Let's let a jury of their peers decide what happens. We're not stupid. The majority of us are not anyhow. I'm sure they're in a. I'm sure that everywhere there's a few that their elevators don't go quite all the way to the top. But I think that the majority of us in this country are intelligent enough to know if you've got the evidence to put the charge on and you can show it to us. I think that we're intelligent enough to be able to decide, yeah, he needs to go away. So, I mean, in Stephen Stern's case, this child has been abused since the age of 8, and then he took her life. And again, I'm really, really hoping and praying that somewhere in that plea deal is a requirement for Jen Soto to have charges, because she is just as culpable as this man is. Herself sending her child to go sleep in a bed with this man, all because she's lazy, wanted to sleep late, had things to do. And then when her daughter went missing, she never had a nice thing to say about her daughter. As a matter of fact, everything that she did was placing blame. Oh, well, she's the one who forgot her phone. That child had never forgotten her phone. They were able to go back and look through her phone records and prove that every day she had that phone with her at school. Oh, she forgets things. She has ADHD. She forgets things all the time. Well, guess what? You know what? You're a mom. My kid, I have, he would be 14 on Tuesday. Um, and guess what? I make sure, that before he walks out the door, that he has everything that he's supposed to have because that's what moms do, you know? Now, when he turns 19, sorry, buddy, but you're gonna have to get your stuff together and do your stuff on your own. But at 14, and in this case, little Maddie was 13 when this happened. Um, well, everything was blamed on her. Oh well, she didn't want us to pull her all the way up to the school because it was an image thing for her. She didn't want us to. She didn't want to be seen in my car. Fool, you drive a Lincoln. Okay, fool, you drive a po man's Cadillac. Ain't well, nothing wrong with that car. Your car, to be honest, for me, I would rather be seen in that car than in Jen Stoto's mom van. Okay, so, but everything, blaming it on Maddie. It must be Maddie's fault. Well, if she hadn't have forgot her phone, well, guess what? She didn't forget her phone. Bottom line is, though, she can't. You can't say that. Oh well, Maddie wanted to go sleep with him in that bedroom because you're the one that actually admitted, Jennifer Soto, that you're the one that would send her up there because you needed your rest. You needed your rest. You wanted to sleep late. You had things to do. The one thing that you forgot is that your most important job was to be a mother and to protect your child. That man hadn't wanted you for a long time. We found that out too. And you even asked him, "You're not going to leave me for my daughter, are you?" And you told the cops that. Yeah. And then you hid away in a mental facility. Yeah. You're going to come out one day because I can't, you're not in there. You're not in that mental facility because you had a breakdown because you're grieving your daughter because clearly you didn't give a lick about her. You couldn't even take off work a couple of hours for her 13th birthday party. Mm-hmm. Okay, whatever. I'm a single mom myself. And I can tell you one thing. I've never not been at my kids' birthday parties. I take care of my kids. We live in a 3-bedroom home, with more that's on the first floor with a big yard, fenced in. We have animals, you know, I cook for my children. And I never have anyone spend the night in my home with my children here. Period. Just doesn't look good. Not a good example to set, much less sending them off to sleep with them in the bed upstairs. Anyway, I'm going off on another tangent. But regardless, but 2 cases and, back to back, I thoroughly believe that the way that the Kohberger plea went down and then finding out that, oh, well, so I can do this and I don't have to say anything but yes and guilty. And nobody will see those pictures and nobody will, see any of those text messages and that'll be it. Yeah, I want to do that. That's what I want to do. That that's why this happened. You literally, from giving this man lenience, you gave this other guy the idea and he took it and ran with it. So, thanks. You know, I'm on YouTube because we have a problem with our judicial system from the bottom of the bunch all the way to the top. People are getting arrested for things that they shouldn't. Um, People are getting lenience for things that they shouldn't. Some are overdoing their jobs, some are underdoing their jobs, but those that need to be protected the most are the ones that are losing out. Another reason I'm here, we need to have more education out there, more advocacy. Okay, we need to be putting together more information to get out to the public so that things can be picked up quicker, behaviors can be picked up quicker. Take for instance, like I said, domestic violence. Domestic violence used to only be considered a physical thing. If you weren't being beaten, you were not a victim of domestic violence. We know now that's not the case. There are many different avenues of domestic violence. And we've made sure that there is so much information out there about it. We have the whole, if you see something, say something movement, but that only works if the public knows what they're looking for in every avenue. There are so many crimes that could have been prevented if someone had spoken up. One person had spoken up. So many crimes could have been prevented. Brian Kohberger had multiple grievances filed against him at that university that he was teaching at by young women who were terrified of him. Did they do anything? No. Well, I'm sorry, they did one thing. On the day that he was, I believe it was announced that he was a person of interest, they fired him that day. Yeah, that was what they did. Wow. How about letting, that's the kind of thing that I'm talking about right there. Teachers are educators, but that doesn't mean that we can't educate them with a different kind of information that they don't have to teach to other people, but it's information that is useful to them to protect the kids that they are responsible for the education of. I mean, we have to do something. People have to stop being afraid. That is what I get, is that people are afraid to speak up. And like I said, the see something, say something, but if you don't know what you're looking for, you can't say anything. And this image that we're putting out right now is just kind of like telling all the other, perpetrators out there, hey, this is your worst case scenario. Look at these two guys. This is your worst case scenario if you get caught. So, all right, guys. It's Saturday night. I was really hoping to kind of come on and do something fun, but I think for me, it's more important to change doesn't happen if you keep your mouth closed. That never works. So, all right, guys, I'm going to jump off, and I hope that all of you have had a wonderful Saturday and are having a great Saturday night. Please have all the fun in the world that you can. Please be safe, and above all, know that you are loved. Love you guys. Bye.